There are betrayals that don't end with cheating. They end with a sentence spoken deliberately aimed straight at the other person's weakest place. You'll never find someone like me. When the one who betrayed you doesn't apologize, doesn't feel remorse, and instead expects you to accept it because they believe you have no better options left, that is no longer love. That is contempt. That is manipulation. That is an attempt to trap someone into living the rest of their life believing they are less than they truly are. Before we dive into today's story, let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always amazing to see where our stories travel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next twist in this journey. Now I'd like you to hear what he's been carrying in his heart. When I first matched with Blair Kensington, I didn't know I'd eventually be buying a ring. All I knew was that I was 31, financially stable, emotionally steady, and quietly tired of chaos. Charlotte was home. My job in data strategy at a mid-size firm paid well. My life ran on rhythm, quiet mornings, predictable emails, gym on Wednesdays, dinner alone most nights. It wasn't exciting, but it was clean, simple. I liked it that way. Blair was the opposite of that. We met on a dating app. One of the serious ones, the kind where people actually wrote bios instead of just listing their height and astrology sign. Her first message was short, direct. You seem like someone who doesn't perform. I didn't know what that meant, but I was intrigued. Our chats moved fast. Banter turned into long midnight calls. We talked until our voices got hoarse and the phone was warm against my cheek. She made me laugh, made me think, made me feel like I could actually be seen, not just swiped on. The night I met her in person uptown, Charlotte was buzzing. I was early, pacing near the valet stand, hands in pockets, running worst-case scenarios in my head. Then she stepped out of the Uber, and God, it was like the whole sidewalk exhaled. Red dress, leather jacket, hair that knew how to move. People looked, men looked. Even the hostess at the rooftop cocktail bar stopped talking mid-sentence. And just like that, I felt small. Not in a pathetic way, but in a way that reminded me Blair lived in a world that naturally tilted toward her. Like gravity bowed a little around her. We clicked that night. I was nervous but honest. She teased but listened. I told her I liked quiet bars. She said I had gentleman energy and sipped her drink like it wasn't a compliment she gave often. I saw how waiters lingered near her side of the table. I noticed a guy casually drop his business card as he passed. She laughed it off. It happens, she said. They just want the story of the girl in red. I didn't question her. I didn't press. I figured trust had to be the baseline, otherwise what was the point? We moved fast. Not reckless fast, but real fast. Weekend brunches turned into midweek dinners. I cooked. She praised everything. She slept over more. Then it became most nights. Then we stopped calling it sleeping over. I handed her a copy of the key. She started leaving face cream in the bathroom and heels by the door. And I didn't hate it. We fell into a rhythm. Freedom Park walks on Sundays. Grocery runs at the Harris Teeter near East Boulevard. She'd throw in wine I didn't know how to pronounce, laugh at how I folded laundry like a robot. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me quiet, thoughtful, and she'd just smile like she was memorizing something. I should have known better. There were moments. Blair was warm, magnetic, even silly at times. But she also had this confidence so sharp it could cut skin. Like the time we ran into her ex's cousin at a bar and she said, "God, I forgot how small some men think." She wasn't talking to me, but it landed anyway. When she suggested we talk about engagement, it came casually, like discussing what takeout to get. "I think you're someone I could build something solid with," she said one night, legs folded under her on our couch, sipping tea. I felt both elated and replaced. Like I was applying for a role she'd already written the description for, but I said yes. Of course I did. She was everything I'd once thought I didn't deserve. Beautiful, electric, ambitious. And she had picked me. I remember holding the ring box later that night after she'd gone to bed. It was small, velvet, black. It looked heavier than it was. I thought about how much of my life had been careful, calculated, and now I was standing at the edge of something that felt too good to be solid. Somewhere deep inside me, a quiet voice whispered, Why would someone like her choose someone like you? I shoved it down. I loved her. That had to be enough. But that voice never really left. It started as a joke. Most bad things do. We were curled up on the couch one night late. Blair had her head in my lap, scrolling her phone, half watching some crime doc playing on mute. It was one of those aimless conversations couples fall into when everything feels comfortable. We talked about celebrity crushes. She named someone predictable, an actor from some dystopian Netflix series. If he walked through that door right now, I said, and offered you a weekend, no questions asked. She smiled without looking up. I mean, would you really blame me? I played along, teasing. So that's your hall pass. She tilted her head, locking eyes with me for a moment too long. Honestly, I don't think many of them would say no to me. It was a joke. Maybe. But something about the way she said it didn't feel like one. It wasn't the words, it was the ease, the familiarity. Like this was a thought she'd had before, and the only thing new was saying it out loud. I laughed softly. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. The next morning I couldn't stop replaying that line. Even as we grabbed coffee from a spot near the light rail station, even as I walked her to her car, even as I went through emails and meetings, that voice in my head kept twisting the memory like a knife. That wasn't insecurity talking. It was instinct. I started noticing more. Blair's phone always buzzed face down. She didn't jump or flinch when it lit up. She just ignored it like someone so used to attention it had become background noise. Sometimes she'd step into another room to take a call, then come back smiling like nothing happened. And when I'd ask about her day, she had a way of giving answers that told me nothing but sounded complete. That night we had dinner in South End. Trendy taco bar, long wait, loud music. We squeezed into a two-top against the window, and halfway through our drinks some guy stopped by. Hey Blair. Familiar smile, confident tone. His hand grazed her arm in a way that wasn't nothing. She smiled back. Oh, this is just an old friend from college, she said quickly, barely glancing at me. No name, no backstory, nothing. The guy nodded, said something about how good it was to see her, then disappeared. I asked nothing. But I watched how fast she changed the subject, how her posture shifted, how her hand found mine across the table like she needed to reaffirm something, maybe to me, maybe to herself. Later in the car, she played music like always, sang along. But her phone lit up again, and this time just for a second it was in my line of sight. A message. A preview. Then message unsent. I didn't say a word. She noticed. And in a movement so fast it looked rehearsed, she snatched the phone and turned it face down again. That's when it hit me, not the message itself, but the reflex. That was muscle memory. That was experience. That was not the behavior of someone with nothing to hide. I didn't confront her. Not then. Not yet. I went to bed that night next to the woman I was planning to marry, and for the first time I didn't feel at peace. I felt like I was holding a glass house with trembling hands, trying not to see the cracks forming right in front of me. I made a decision. I would wait. I would watch. I would stop giving benefit of the doubt where doubt had already taken root. Because deep down, I was starting to believe that whatever I found next might destroy everything. The first time Blair came home late, I didn't even flinch. She texted that she was wrapping things up and would be home soon. It was a Wednesday. I'd cooked chicken piccata, her favorite. The lemon butter sauce had already started to congeal by the time she walked in at 8:47 p.m. Hair down, blazer in hand, smile casual. Sorry, she said. Work ran long. Then Amy asked if I could grab a quick drink to vent about her breakup. I nodded. I wanted to believe her. Why wouldn't I? But then it became a pattern. Fridays stretched longer. Mondays turned murky. Back-to-back meetings. Lost track of time. Drinks with clients. I was already near South End, so figured I'd stay a bit. And the details stopped coming. Before she'd tell me what Amy said, how the new girl at her firm wore Chanel perfume so thick it fogged up the conference room. But now, just vague gestures, soft smiles, quick pecks. Her phone always face down. I told myself it was stress. End of quarter chaos. Burnout. God knows I've had weeks like that too. But I noticed things. Like the way her coat would sometimes smell faintly like smoke, not cigarettes, not weed, just the cloying, musky scent of someone else's night. Or how she'd walk in head straight to the bathroom and shower before even saying much more than hi. I wasn't accusatory. That's not who I am. I waited, gave her room. One night I finally asked quietly over reheated pasta. "Hey, you've been getting home pretty late. Everything okay?" She looked up from her plate, blinked once. "It's just been busy." With she put down her fork. "Wow. Really? That's where this is going?" I stared. "I'm just asking. You're acting like I'm sneaking around. Is this gonna be a thing now, me checking in like a teenager?" "No," I said, shrinking. "I'm just trying to understand." She scoffed. "You sound like my dad." And just like that, the conversation was over. She took her plate to the sink, phone in hand, tapping quickly with her thumb. That was the first time I felt small for simply caring. After that, I stopped asking. But I started noticing more. Like how every time her phone lit up, she'd flip it over, or leave the room entirely to answer a call. She said she didn't want work interrupting our evenings. But that wasn't how it felt. It felt curated, controlled. I started tracking, not obsessively but quietly. Notes on my phone. Tuesday home at 9:12 p.m., said client dinner. Thursday mild perfume, not hers. The worst part, I still loved her. I still wanted to believe every excuse, every story. But then came the message. It was late past midnight. I was rinsing glasses from a solo dinner she missed again. My phone buzzed. No name, just a number. The message read, "Greater than you don't know me, but I think you should ask Blair where she really was tonight. South End rooftop bar around 8. She wasn't alone. Attached was a photo. Blurry, zoomed in. But the silhouette was unmistakable. That high ponytail. The black wool coat. The tilt of her laugh. I stared at the screen for a long time. Could have been someone messing with me. Could have been nothing. But the message included something specific, her car's license plate. A single letter wrong, but close enough to be real. That detail shook me. I didn't confront her. What was I going to say? Someone sent me a stalker message about you, explain yourself. No. If she was lying, she'd only sharpen the lie. And if she wasn't, then God help me for ever doubting her. But I'd crossed a threshold now. The version of love where you take things at face value, that was over. From now on, I needed the truth, not the performance of it, and I knew exactly how to get it. I sat in my car for 12 full minutes before walking into the office. Private Investigations of Charlotte. The glass was tinted, the lettering in silver. Nothing flashy, just a name, a bell, and a hallway that smelled faintly like copier toner and cheap floor polish. I had booked the meeting online, used a burner Gmail address just in case Blair ever checked my laptop. I told myself this was the only option left. That it wasn't paranoia. That it was precaution. The man who greeted me looked like he could have been a retired cop or someone's uncle, broad-shouldered polo shirt tucked into jeans, a notebook in hand. "Mr. Vance." "Yeah," I said, standing. "Thanks for seeing me." "Name's Calder," he said, motioning me into a small office with blinds half drawn. "Take your time." So I did. I told him everything. Not all at once, but in pieces. The hall pass joke that never sat right. The missed dinners. The sudden coldness. The anonymous message. The smell of someone else's world trailing into mine. He didn't blink. Just took notes. When I finished, he looked up. "You're not the first guy to sit in that chair wondering if he's going crazy." "I don't want to be right," I said. "I just want to stop wondering." Calder nodded. "You said she works near Uptown, drives a black Audi A5, gets off around 6, yeah, supposedly." He scribbled. "Routines help us track. You mentioned she often goes out in South End. She says it's for drinks, friends, co-workers. People cheat where they feel invisible," he said flatly. "Bars, rooftops, busy places where no one pays attention, We know the spots. He recommended 10 days of surveillance. That's all I could afford. We'll log timestamps, locations, interactions, he said. If she meets someone more than once, we'll know. If she lies, we'll catch it. If she's clean, well, then you'll have peace. I signed the paperwork, initialed the confidentiality clause, put down a deposit. Felt like I was betraying something sacred. But I couldn't let that stop me. He gave me clear rules. Don't confront her. Don't change your behavior. Don't tip her off. Just act normal, he said. Let us do the dirty work. As I left the building, I felt like I'd stepped out of a dream into a version of reality I never wanted. The timing, of course, was cruel. That night, Blair came home early. She brought wine. She sat next to me on the couch, curled her feet under her, and asked if I'd looked at wedding venues yet. Her eyes were soft. Her voice sweeter than it had been in weeks. Maybe we could do something outdoors, she said. Mountains, maybe. I nodded, smiled. My stomach turned. Was this a coincidence, or had she sensed I was pulling away? The next morning, I overheard her whispering on the phone out on the balcony. Her voice was low, playful, not like the clipped, efficient tone she used with coworkers. When I stepped outside, she spun around like I'd caught her doing something illegal. Oh, just my mom, she said. She's driving me nuts about floral arrangements. But she ended the call too fast, too neatly. Later that day, she suggested a weekend getaway, just the two of us. She even had a place in mind, a cabin in Asheville, the exact weekend the surveillance would start. I had to think fast. I said work might get crazy, that I couldn't commit just yet. She smiled a little too long. You're always so responsible. Was that sarcasm or a warning? By day 3, Blair started changing up her schedule, left earlier, came home at odd hours, said she'd taken a yoga class but had no mat, no receipt, no post-workout glow. I logged it all. Every moment now felt like a chess match I hadn't asked to play. But I'd made my move. The board was set. Somewhere out there, a man with a camera and a zoom lens was following the woman I was supposed to marry. I didn't know what he'd find. But I did know this: the moment I signed those papers, something between us died. Maybe it was innocence, or denial. Or maybe it was the version of me that still believed love didn't come with terms and conditions. Whatever it was, I wasn't getting it back. The 10th day hadn't even arrived yet, but I was already unraveling from the inside out. Each morning felt like being strapped into a chair, forced to wait for a sentence that hadn't yet been read aloud. I was living in a state of suspended punishment, guilty not of the crime, but of loving someone who might be lying straight to my face. At work, I showed up on time. I nodded in meetings. I answered emails, but none of it registered. My screen blurred into meaningless blocks of text. When a colleague asked if I was okay, I told them I was just tired, which wasn't a lie technically, but it wasn't the truth either. The truth was living in my gut like a parasite chewing at my insides. Blair texted like clockwork. Running late. Traffic again. Caught up with Elise. Heading back now. She even added the occasional heart emoji like seasoning on a meal I could no longer taste. I read each one as if it were part of a script she had rehearsed. The first 2 days I played along. I asked how her day went, acted interested when she mentioned a client being difficult or a friend needing advice. She smiled sometimes, touched my arm, even thanked me for being patient. But there was a hollow ring to it. I'd heard that tone before from salespeople trying to upsell from coworkers, padding excuses. It wasn't warmth. It was performance. And Blair was a damn good actress. I tried to cope. I hit the gym every evening, lifting more than I needed to hoping fatigue would drown out the anxiety. I deep cleaned the apartment. I overworked myself on a report I normally would have delegated. None of it helped. One night she came home past 9. Her eyes were bright, almost glittering. There was a high in her body language that didn't match the story she gave Elise, and I ended up grabbing drinks after dinner. You know how we get when we catch up. She showered quickly. She curled into me on the couch like nothing was wrong. She kissed my neck, smelled faintly of something floral but foreign. I held her because I had to, but my stomach was already turning. That kiss wasn't a comfort. It was an insult. Day 5, I found a valet ticket on the passenger seat of her car when she asked me to grab her water bottle. It was from a rooftop bar we'd never gone to together, the timestamp. Almost exactly when she said she was still at the office helping a client. I didn't confront her, not yet. My hands clenched the ticket until the corners bent, but I slid it into my wallet next to a photo of us at a vineyard last fall. It stayed there like a splinter. The worst part, Blair started checking in on me more than usual. "You okay, babe? You seem off lately." She touched my face. She looked concerned. She even asked if I was stressed about the wedding. It was a mind game. Whether intentional or instinctive, she was flipping the script, making me the one who seemed secretive. I had to lie to keep my silence intact. "Work's been heavy," I said, trying to get ahead before the honeymoon. The private investigator hadn't called yet. I both dreaded and craved the ring of my phone. Some days I wished he'd tell me she was clean, that it was all in my head. Other days I prayed he'd confirm it so I could stop playing this humiliating role. On the 7th day, Blair forgot her gym bag in the hallway. Inside was a receipt for a boutique liquor store. Again, one we'd never shopped at together. Again, bought on a night she claimed to be at her friend Olivia's. Each breadcrumb made my heart heavier. Each night she came home and kissed me felt more like a punch to the chest. I wasn't even jealous anymore. I was just numb. By the 9th night, I sat in the dark on our couch long after she'd gone to bed. I stared at the empty wine glass she left on the coffee table. The silence in the apartment was thick. All I could think was, tomorrow everything changes. I closed the chapter in my head with a single sentence. If he brings me proof, there's no going back. Day 10 arrived with the weight of a funeral. My phone rang at 10:14 a.m. I froze when I saw the caller ID Calder Investigations. I walked out of the office, heart thudding like a drum in my throat. When I answered, Mr. Calder's voice was calm, almost too calm. "I have the information you asked for," he said. "It's best we talk in person." I drove to his office like I was headed to hear a diagnosis. I didn't touch the radio. My palms were sweating. My throat was dry. The stoplights in Charlotte felt endless, blinking red like warnings from a higher power. Inside the office looked the same, tidy, minimal, anonymous, but the weight of what I was about to hear made the air feel heavier. A manila envelope sat on the desk between us like a silent witness. Mr. Calder asked, "Would you prefer to hear it first or look at the documentation?" I opted to hear it. Somehow I thought the words might land softer than photographs. He didn't dramatize, just facts. Over the course of the past 10 days, Ms. Kensington was seen visiting an apartment complex in Southend 3 times, the same unit each time. Entered alone. Exited alone approximately 2 hours later. He paused. Each time she was seen in visible contact with a man named Holden Pierce. According to DMV records, he resides at that unit. Photographic evidence confirms physical affection, hand-holding, hugging, and kissing on 2 occasions. I nodded, numb. I asked for the dates and times. They aligned with every night she'd told me she was working late or with friends. I reached for the envelope. My fingers didn't tremble. They were ice. Inside were 8 photographs, all time-stamped. Blair and Holden in a garage, in front of his building, on the sidewalk near a coffee shop, one where he brushed her hair back from her face, one where they kissed, one where she leaned her head on his shoulder. Every frame shattered a different illusion I'd held onto. What broke me wasn't just the betrayal, it was the familiarity. She looked happy, effortless. Not like someone sneaking around, but like someone exactly where she wanted to be. I sat in my car for nearly an hour after leaving. I held the envelope on my lap like it might combust. I stared at the dashboard, at the steering wheel, at nothing. The future I thought we were building had already collapsed. I just hadn't been invited to the demolition. On my way home, I passed the boutique where we'd picked out our wedding invitations. I couldn't look at it. Back at the apartment, I stood in the doorway watching the late sun light up the kitchen. the wine rack, the fridge with our save the dates, the list of catering options stuck to the side. I walked into the bedroom. Her engagement ring was on the dresser. She'd taken it off while cooking probably, or maybe at the gym. It gleamed in the light like it still meant something. I almost laughed. That night, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I sat at the dining table and placed the envelope beside me. I waited for Blair to come home. And I decided tonight she was going to tell me the truth, or at least hear what I knew. There would be no theatrics, no begging. Just a single sentence to start sit down. And whatever came after that would be the end of the life we'd built, or thought we had. When I heard the door click behind her, I already had the envelope tucked into the drawer. Not to hide it, but to make sure I didn't slam it down in rage. I needed to be calm, cold. If this conversation exploded, I didn't want Blair to walk away painting me as the unstable one. I wasn't going to be the villain in a story she authored. She walked in like it was any other Thursday night, dropped her keys into the ceramic dish we bought together at a flea market, kicked off her heels with that little sigh she always did when she was relieved to be home. Except it wasn't home anymore. Not for me. Hey, she said, breezy. Traffic on I-277 was a nightmare. I stopped by that Thai place, want some pad see-you. Sit down, I said. Her brows lifted. Okay. What's going on? I didn't answer. Just waited for her to take the seat across from me at the kitchen island. The granite countertop between us felt like a fault line. She sat finally, eyes scanning my face. What's wrong? I opened the drawer, pulled out the envelope, set it down gently. I know about the apartment in South End. Her lips parted, then shut. I know about Holden Pierce, I said. I know what nights you were there. I know how often. I know what you wore. Her face didn't crumble. It hardened. That was the first sting. You had me followed, she asked, voice low. No, I said. I hired someone to find the truth. Because I couldn't trust your words anymore. She looked away out the window like the answer might be hiding in the skyline. I'm not here to scream, I continued. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to end it. The engagement is off. Still no apology, not even a twitch of guilt. She finally looked back at me and said, You're being dramatic. I almost laughed. Don't do that. Kairos, she said, her voice now adopting that rehearsed calm like I was the emotional one. It was nothing serious. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough for you to lie about where you were, to sleep with someone else while planning a wedding. She shrugged like she was tired of the conversation already. It was just physical. A release. I shook my head slowly. You don't get to minimize this. You're acting like I cheated on our anniversary or something, she snapped. You always overthink everything. I picked up the envelope and slid it closer to her. Don't lie. The pictures are in here. You know that. Blair crossed her arms, eyes narrowing. You really think you'll find someone better than me? I didn't respond. She tilted her head, leaned back in her chair, then delivered it. Her dagger polished and precise. You'll never find anyone like me. There it was. The sentence I didn't know I'd been bracing for since the night I proposed. Right from the start, she added, voice now like silk over steel, you knew I was out of your league. You never said it out loud, but I saw it in how you looked at me. Like you were scared I'd wake up one day and realize it. She stood, smoothed down her skirt like the conversation bored her now. And you know what? You were right. I was too much for you. I always have been. I stood too. Not to tower over her, not to fight, but to leave. You're not too much, I said. You're just too empty to care who you hurt. She laughed, quiet mocking. Good luck finding someone who won't settle for boring. I didn't take the bait. I walked to the door, my hand on the knob. You didn't break me, Blair, I said without turning around. You just showed me who I was wasting my heart on. And I left. No suitcase. No last glance. I drove through Charlotte like I was shedding a skin. parked at the first motel with a vacancy sign and didn't even care that the sheets were scratchy or the AC rattled like hell. I lay on my back, stared at the popcorn ceiling, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. The motel smelled like old coffee and cheap soap. I left just after sunrise. The roads were still quiet dew clinging to the edges of windshields. When I pulled up to the apartment, I hoped she'd be gone. She wasn't. Blair opened the door in a silk robe like nothing had happened. I figured you'd come back, she said, smug. I didn't respond. Just walked past her, straight to the bedroom. Packed a duffel with the essentials, laptop files, 2 changes of clothes, my cologne. I grabbed the framed photo off the dresser and put it face down in the trash. She didn't stop me. You always run, she called from the kitchen. That's the difference between us. I zipped the bag, walked out and said, without looking at her, I'll be back for the rest. Don't touch it. A few days later, I returned with Marcus, a friend from work. Blair didn't say a word this time. She just watched from the kitchen, arms crossed. Like a queen watching her servant resign. She texted later that night. You're really done, huh? You actually think you'll find someone who makes you feel like I did? I blocked the number, deleted her contact, removed every trace of her from my phone, my laptop, my life. I moved into a new place a week later, smaller, quieter, no shared closet, no soft lies whispered over dinner. I worked. A lot. Went back to the gym. Let my friends drag me out even when I didn't feel like it. The apartment started feeling like mine, not just a pit stop on the way to some fantasy life I'd imagined with her. Exactly 1 year later, I found myself standing in front of a ballroom downtown for my 15-year high school reunion. I almost didn't go. But I did. And that's where I saw Jess Elaine. We caught up, laughed, sipped wine. Then she leaned in and asked, You remember Harlow Wynn? Of course, I said. Everyone remembered Harlow. Well, she always had the biggest crush on you, Jessa said, smirking. She actually made me promise to tell you if you showed. I blinked. You're kidding. Nope. She asked about you like 3 times. That night I DM'd Harlow on Instagram. Just a hey, heard you asked about me. She replied 3 days later. I did. Took you long enough. We started talking, then FaceTiming, then talking until 1 a.m. like we were 17 again. Harlow lived in New York now, modeling full-time. Runways, editorials, endless castings. But her laugh was the same. So was her sharp wit. She made me feel seen, not because I earned it, not because I proved I was enough, but because, to her, I already was. I told her I didn't want games. She smiled. Neither do I. We started dating. A month later, I flew to New York. Watched her at a shoot in Brooklyn. She didn't know I was coming until I walked in. Her face lit up, and I felt it real solid ground beneath my feet for the first time in a long time. That night, I posted a quick snap to my Instagram close friends. Harlow laughing on set. No caption. And then came the message. From Blair. Cute. Didn't peg you for the groupie type. I stared at the screen for a beat. She's my girlfriend, I replied. Another message, sarcastic. Something about me being predictable. That's when it hit me. She was still in my close friends. All this time I hadn't bothered to clean house. One crack in the door and she'd slid through again. I didn't reply. I removed her. Blocked her. Not in anger, but in finality. She once said I'd never find anyone like her. And she was right. Because this time I wasn't looking for someone who sparkled loud and cold. I wanted warmth, truth, peace. Harlow wasn't Blair's opposite, she was just herself. Real. Enough. As we sat in that little cafe in Manhattan, her hand in mine, I thought about how far I'd come. From the man who once asked himself if he was enough, to the man who no longer needed anyone else's permission to believe he was. Some doors don't slam shut with a bang. Some close with a soft click when you finally choose to walk through the one that leads forward. Some endings don't echo. They just stop. Like a door that used to creak suddenly glides shut for good. And when it does, you realize the silence isn't empty. It's peaceful. For the longest time, I thought pain meant something real had happened, that if it didn't hurt, it must not have mattered. But I was wrong. Sometimes what hurts the most isn't the loss, it's the lie you told yourself to justify staying. I stayed with Blair because I thought love meant endurance, because I mistook emotional scarcity for depth, because I confused being chosen with being cherished. But love isn't proven by what you're willing to survive. It's revealed in who you're allowed to become when you're with someone. And Blair never let me become. What she offered wasn't partnership, it was pedestal or punishment. If I adored her, I was rewarded. If I questioned, I was punished. Slowly, without realizing it, I became someone who negotiated with his own worth. I swallowed small humiliations. I laughed at things that weren't funny. I ignored gut feelings until they shriveled into shame. It took betrayal to wake me up. But healing didn't come with rage or revenge, it came with clarity. It came with stillness. With late nights alone in a quiet apartment where I relearned how to breathe without asking permission. With friends who didn't flinch when I told them the truth. With someone new who didn't need me to perform, just show up honestly. And you know what I learned? Closure doesn't always arrive when they apologize. Sometimes closure is when you no longer need them to. Sometimes the real victory isn't winning them back or proving them wrong. It's walking past the version of yourself that begged to be seen and realizing you don't beg anymore. So, if you've ever been told you'll never find someone like them again, maybe that's the gift. Maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe the whole point was to finally find someone like you, the version of you who stopped settling, who chose respect over drama, truth over sparkle, peace over performance. And when you do, you don't just move on, you rise. Some stories don't end with a bang. They end with a quiet decision. A moment when someone chooses peace over pride, self-worth over illusion. And just like that, a door closes not out of spite, but out of self-respect. What we heard today wasn't just about betrayal or heartbreak. It was about waking up from a long silence, finding the strength to walk away not because you hate someone, but because you finally remembered how to love yourself. We all carry different thresholds for pain. Some stay longer, some leave too late. But at some point, if we're lucky, we learn love isn't something we have to earn through endurance. The kind of love that lasts is the kind that lets us feel safe, seen, and steady, not small. And when someone speaks to us from that place of clarity like he did today, it reminds us we're not alone in trying to figure it all out. If you've been through something like this, or even if you're just carrying thoughts you've never said out loud, you're welcome to leave a few words below. This space is for stories, not judgment. And if you feel this kind of reflection has a place in your day, you're invited to subscribe and be part of our listening circle. We'll be right here, one story at a time. Thanks for being with us tonight. Until next time.